Boom. Welcome back, everybody, to the channel. We are so glad you're here. Today, Paul is going to run this one solo.
Yeah, we're going to try. We're going to give it a go. But what we wanted to go over today is just the parts of the gun. We've talked about your 4 cardinal rules. We've talked about what to kind of look for when you're buying a gun. Next video, we're going to talk about what to look for when you're buying a holster. But right now, we're going to kind of get down to the nitty-gritty of what are the parts of a gun, so that when somebody tells you something, A, you know what they're talking about, and B, you're not embarrassed that you don't know what they're talking about. So the first thing that we want to do is we're going to go into what are the parts of a pistol, and then we're going to cover very quickly what are the parts of a revolver. Thankfully, the revolver's very few parts that you actually have to worry about knowing about.
That's it. I'm going to step away and actually operate the handheld so we can get closer, and I'm going to let Paul take this one over.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. So what we're going to do real quick is we're just going to break down the parts of a gun so you can know what you're talking about when you're going to look to buy one of these things, okay? So what we're going to use today is going to be my Glock, my 43X. This is my daily carry. Fingers over the serial number. I don't want none of you hooligans seeing my serial number. But what you're looking at right now is right here. This is your frame, okay? This is the frame of the gun. This on top is your slide, okay? Clear?
It's clear.
See, nothing in the chamber, nothing down the frame of the gun, the mag well, none of that. So with the Glocks, you do have to pull the trigger to break it down. So please make sure if you're going to clean these guns, to make sure they're empty. I don't want you to accidentally shoot yourself because you're trying to clean your gun and forget that there's a round in the chamber. Okay. So with inside the gun, this is not going to be a whole lot that you guys need to worry about right now. But up here we have our extractor and our ejectors. And then we have our slide release, which is right here. So when the slide is locked back, this is what's going to allow you to release the slide and go forward. And then this is your magazine release button right here. So what you do is you depress on this and it releases the magazine from inside of the gun. That way you can pull it out and do a reload, or pull it out to make sure that you can clear the gun and make it safe. This is your trigger guard. Okay, and then this is your trigger. Glocks have a trigger safety, so there's a little piece right here on the front that you can push down. But if you don't push that down as you're pushing the trigger, if you're just going from the side, it won't actually fire the gun. Glocks have numerous interior safeties as well. So that's why I'm comfortable carrying this gun with a round in the chamber and no external safety. But you have your frame, extractor and ejector. This is your feed ramp right here. So when the bullet comes up, it's actually going to hit this part and then pop into the chamber that's in the barrel. You have your magazine release, your slide release, trigger guard, and trigger. Inside of all of this is where your trigger housing is. This is your trigger actually runs down here and gets stuck back here in the back of the gun. But that's pretty much your basics of what's inside of the frame of your gun. Okay. This is your slide, this top piece right here. This is, it tells you 43X, this is made in Austria. This is your rear sight. Okay. You've got 2 little humps. This is your front sight. You have 1 little hump. Okay. That 1 hump usually will come with some type of colored dot on the front. Possibly depending on what type of pistol you get, you'll have 2 colored dots on each hump of the back sight as well. Now, the reason you have those, this is tritium inside of it. So inside of these 3 little white dots, they actually glow in the dark. So when I pull my gun out at night, if I don't have a light source, I can still line up those 3 little dots and have a decent idea of where I'm trying to shoot. Ideally, when you're looking down the sights, you want this front sight to be in line with these rear sights where the tops are level across and centered in between these rear sights. And that's something that we'll get into in one of our later videos and actually show you guys exactly what we're talking about. But that's your general idea of what the sights are. Okay, now inside, what you're looking at is you have your recoil spring. This is what gets compressed when the gun is fired, and the slide comes back and then pushes the slide back into battery. These are very important, and you'll have a lot of people who kind of customize their guns and they don't cycle properly. This is usually your culprit. Either the spring is too hard or too soft to cycle the gun properly. Underneath the recoil spring, you have your barrel. This is a subcompact barrel. As you can see, the barrel itself is very, very short. Please excuse all of the gunk on my fingers now. It's been a minute since I've cleaned these. But again, it's a Glock. They're meant to run a little dirty. So this is part of that feed ramp I was telling you about. This is where the bullet goes into the chamber, and it sits in here. This is the chamber right here, okay? This is where the bullet resides. The little primer strike gets hit and then shoots the bullet through the barrel, okay? In the slide right here, what we have is our firing pin. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's a little piece of metal that's sticking out the back side of this. It's disappeared, and now it's back out. That little piece of metal is what strikes the primer, creating that initial explosion, which then lights the gunpowder inside of the casing, which then shoots the bullet out of the barrel. Those are your very basic general, and here's your extractor on the slide as well. So this little piece right here on the gun, and you can see it kind of lumps over a little bit. That actually grabs the back side of the bullet. That's why there's that little lip on it that pulls it, hits your extractor, your ejector, and comes flying out of the gun. That's a very basic overview. There's a lot more that you can get into. We can get into taking the back plate off, taking the firing pin out, cleaning it, taking your ejector out. All of this stuff, you can do yourself, but until you're comfortable with working on guns, I would highly suggest you get a gunsmith or get a gun shop to do it. Because if you don't put it back together or you break something that you're not paying attention to, you could have a very big malfunction and basically render your gun useless. Okay. Now for revolvers, most revolvers are one piece. Okay, maybe at the most two. But what you're going to see, like a lot of the old school cowboy guns, they're usually all one piece, and then pieces are added, like the grips and stuff are added on the outside. So basically with a revolver, you're looking at the frame of the gun. Obviously you still have your trigger guard and you still have your trigger. The big difference about this gun compared to this gun is obviously this little piece right here. Everybody's seen people in movies, they'll spin it and throw it back up, right? So that's a benefit of having a revolver. Downfall of having a revolver is this is a 22, so you get about 8 shots out of this one. But most revolvers, you're only looking at 5 or 6 shots. This is your cylinder, okay? Bullets go in this way, okay? Once it's completely full, you then pop the cylinder back up, and then you just start pulling the trigger. Once you're done pulling the trigger, you fire it off all 8 rounds. All revolvers are a little bit different, but this is the general idea, is they're gonna have a plunger right here in the middle. And all you have to do is push that plunger and all of those casings come out. Just like that. And all the casings will come falling out. Because if you just look right here and you're trying to pick these out one by one, that's gonna be a big pain and you're gonna kind of look like you don't know what you're doing, okay? So most revolvers are going to come with some type of plunger system. It may be something that you have to unscrew. If it's a really old one, you may have to unscrew it from the frame and actually insert it into the cylinder to get it to use, but this is a newer Ruger. So it's incorporated with the spring, so you don't have to worry about, you just press the plunger back and the casings come out.
Well, huge thanks to Paul for going through that. I mean, that's a lot of work.
It is. There's a lot to it, and you can definitely deep dive and get more intricate into it. But that's going to be your general idea of what's on most firearms. Stuff you're going to need to know that once you start breaking it down and cleaning the gun, everything we talked about is pretty much what has to be cleaned. So if you're months away and you forget, like, I don't remember exactly what we're supposed to clean, go back through this. Everything we talked about, except for the sights, need to be cleaned when you're cleaning your pistol. And again, with a Glock, Smith & Wesson, SIG, you're going to be able to get away with not cleaning them as often. But it still needs to be done. So when you do it, make sure you hit all those parts that we just talked about.
Yeah, huge shout out to Paul for doing that. We do think it's obviously really important. This is a whole series about being a better shooter, especially if you're a beginner, learning the correct way, learn the right way. Not saying we're experts, we're just giving you that information right out of the gate. So huge shout out to Paul for going through all that. That was daunting. But again, if you have any questions or concerns, comments, you guys know you can drop them below. You can find us on Facebook at Ezekiel Defense Shooting. Find us there. I appreciate all the subscribers, all the likes. You guys have been incredible. I know Paul's appreciative of it as well.
Absolutely.
And so that's why we're here. So if you want, we obviously have a few more videos coming out for the new shooter. And so if you want to see something, again, like Paul said, if you have a question about your gun or you want to see a certain video, I promise you it's probably already on deck to be recorded. But drop it below and we'll make sure we get it out.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening, guys. If you have any questions, concerns, you got a gun that maybe you're not familiar with and none of it looks kind of like what we just talked about, let us know. If we don't have the answer, we got a couple gunsmiths on deck that are willing to answer those for us and get you all of the pertinent information that you need.
Awesome. I'm Kevin. This is Paul. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Shoot them straight. Your car is not a holster.